this one. That's loud. Good Lord. Alrighty, welcome. It's Christian Olson with Berkshire Hathaway with two Baltimorons sitting in with Andrea Soto and Jeff Bisker from Goosehead Insurance.
How's it going?
What's up, guys?
Hello. We have Jeff on here to talk a little bit about insurance. How you been, man?
Not bad. Can't
Not
complain.
bad, yeah.
You know, we got the holidays coming up here.
Are you excited?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Family's excited. And
Did you guys stay local for Thanksgiving?
we did. We stayed close.
You have people over for Christmas?
No, we're going to go to the in-laws and my parents.
Where's that at?
So on the either end of Mountain Road, 152, Fallston, Maryland.
Yeah. That's
Got it.
Allison's land.
There you go.
We don't travel at all, really. We're just on either side, and
Okay.
you know. So
I like how you
it makes
consider
it
that
easy.
traveling.
Yeah, we're right in between,
Yeah.
maybe 4 miles round
Yeah.
trip. You know,
Okay.
it's not crazy. So
Well, that's lovely.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, it'll
not
be
much
good.
to worry about, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you again, Jeff, for coming out and supporting our pie party again.
Oh yeah,
Dude,
Yeah.
that was
great.
so much fun.
I had such a good
We
time.
definitely had a good turnout this year.
I
That's for
think
sure.
we were talking about it, and that was probably like one of the best ones we've had. Probably what Mike said, top 2, top
Yeah.
3.
Yeah.
I've only been to 2. I think that
Yeah.
was the best one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
I've only
So we're
been to 2 as
killing it.
well. Yeah.
I think every year you guys have been stepping it up.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
This
for
year,
sure.
Yeah.
I
right?
think the spread definitely the spread helped this year.
A little
Yeah.
bit of everything, you know, the pie, the drinks, the
S'mores?
dude, that
s'mores?
was a killer
Yes.
table, yeah. And I feel like even like the ratio of people inside, outside with the fire, it was like healthy the entire time.
Sure.
Yes.
Such a good time.
It is.
Absolutely.
So, okay, question. Now that we're into like the winter season of the year, what do you see most in insurance, or is there a lot of stuff that you guys are preparing for winter in the insurance world?
Yeah, so I think some of the big things that you're going to want to do, and what we talk to our clients about as well, is just make sure that we're winterizing our homes, right? So,
Okay.
so what does that mean, right?
Now-
So-
What does that mean?
yeah.
so,
what exactly does it mean?
I have a property on the market. We're gonna have to winterize it. It's a short sale home, but to my understanding, basically you're getting like most of the water out of the pipes when it's vacant. It's going to be totally different probably when someone's living there.
Yep.
But we're getting all the water out of the pipes. They don't freeze and burst when no one's living there. In terms of when people are actually living in the property, what does winterizing your home mean?
Well, I mean, it's a combination of a few things, right? So I think the first thing is making sure that the leaves that fell in the fall, right, get cleared out of the gutters, and that we are free and clear of those, right? Because as water accumulates, if they're not draining out of the gutters, then it's freezing, right? And water has an interesting way of traveling. When it's frozen, it's not going in the path that it's supposed to, right?
Right.
It's supposed to go down the gutter, down the downspout, out away from the home. But if you're clogged and it freezes, then it can go up underneath of the shingles, right? Or it could
Oh, I
go
didn't even think about
down the sides, right? So with that, you will have ice that will build up and then come back down and into the house. You know,
Because it expands and contracts, right?
absolutely.
Now
Yep.
this is going to be way out of left field.
Sure.
In terms of like ice freezing on gutters, icicles. Have you ever heard of an icicle claim in
Yes.
the insurance world?
Absolutely.
Icicle claim. Wow.
Yeah.
I gotta pull that one out this winter.
No, that's a good one. That's a good one. No, it absolutely is a thing. So,
Really?
so that's personal injury on your policy, your homeowner's policy. It protects for personal injury. So if someone's gets hurt on your property, they can help with this. So your policy can help someone else if they get hurt. Now, there's always like, well, how much do I need to do, right? Like I need to do something, right? We can't just not do anything. So example, right? Your sidewalks, your driveways should be cleared, right? If we have
Yeah.
a snowstorm or we have ice, we need to take the necessary precautions to clear it, right? Put down salt.
Okay.
Especially if you know people are coming over, right? That's a slip and fall, right? So
Yeah.
people could get hurt there. So it's fun, not funny, but it is it is a thing, right?
Yeah,
You
I
know?
mean, I never thought about it till now, and it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Interesting. All right. Well,
Yeah.
you learn something new every day here
Yeah.
on the podcast.
Sure.
So when you guys talk about turning off the water, you
Yep.
know, do you just turn off the water, or do you have to like let it run as well? Like, do you have to?
I
dry
forget
home
the
out?
exact process. You remember Joe with Cobell Homes, like the contractor we always use? They winterize the property, and basically we just send him out there, and I think he like runs the water out of the pipes, and
Yeah.
that's to my understanding. I don't do that.
As a realtor, we don't need to know what it is. We just gotta pay someone to do it.
According to Mike, yeah. But basically, they get the water out of the pipes. There's a couple other things that they'll do, but especially if like someone's like no one's living there,
Right.
and a pipe burst, that's going to be damage to your property, things like that. Now, that would fall under some homeowners insurance, right?
It would, yeah, a burst pipe. Now, vacant homes is something that, every insurance company is going to want to know if someone's living in the house or not, right? Because they could be susceptible to theft.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Yeah, higher.
Yep.
Yeah.
So theft's covered under your standard homeowners policy, but once you go past a certain amount of days, that portion will fall off. So carriers want to know, and the insurance companies want to know, like,
How
is it going to be 30 days?
Yeah.
Right? If it's going to be more than that, then we need to talk to the carriers and say, hey, we will not be there. No one will be there.
Yeah.
Right. So is it okay? Right. Talk to the underwriters, making sure, because the other item is making sure that the home is properly maintained as far as the heat.
Yeah.
Because if our heat's not properly set, those pipes could freeze and burst.
Yeah.
Right. So the big area to be looking at for pipes is going to be, do they run along an exterior wall? Right? Because the exterior wall is the closest to the outside. It's going to be colder.
Yeah.
So those pipes should be insulated. Right? I mean, that's the best thing to be doing, I think, to protect yourself, is insulating those exterior wall pipes.
The amount of times, like, especially recently, I've been out to see homes and they go explore, like, I don't even want, not the attic, the crawl space, and they see uninsulated pipes and it throws up a red flag immediately.
Sure.
It's crazy, especially getting into the colder days. So like those need to be insulated. Like that's a huge, I don't want to say huge expense, but it's something that they have to take care of.
Sure.
And I had never really thought about, one of the gentlemen that I'm working with, his dad's like a construction home builder essentially. So he knows like,
Knows the stuff.
yeah, practically everything. Sometimes he's giving me a little lesson.
Those are the best people to go on showings with.
Our favorite.
They're our favorites.
Now, in terms of actual home insurance itself, is there like a comfortable budget or something like a number that people could attach it to? I mean, obviously it's all like
Dependent.
Yeah.
On what policy you get.
Yeah.
and property is.
Yeah, so there's a few things that are going to come into play as far as like how insurance is determined and how much it's going to cost, right? If I have a 5,000 square foot home, my price for insurance is going to be a lot more than someone that has a 2,000 square foot home, right?
Right.
Because essentially we are rebuilding a home if there's ever a fire, right? That's
Right.
I think the best way to
Right.
look at it is,
How
you
much
know,
you intake responsibility.
exactly. How much are we going to insure the home for? And it's to rebuild the home.
Yeah.
Right. So we're talking typically in the real estate industry is market value, right? How much are we going to buy the home for? We look at
Yeah.
school districts and how much land there is and desirability of the home. Insurance does not care about that.
Yeah.
What insurance wants to do is make sure that we can rebuild the home on the land that it's sitting on.
Yeah.
We do not insure the land itself at all. Just the property that's built on that. So it could be
Interesting.
a fence, it could be a shed, it could be your house, but it is not like the actual land.
The sewer system.
Exactly. Yeah. Now there is some coverages for the sewer system.
Okay.
That can be added, and some things to think about, like service line. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So especially like in the city, we've got some older lines.
Yeah.
Right. So from your house to the road, that's your responsibility. That's not the cities or the counties. That's yours. So if a tree root grows through them, right? If we have freezing of those pipes, if we have weight on top of them and they deteriorate, right? And even wear and tear can be covered if you get the right endorsement for that service line. If you opt out of the service line, then that's your expense.
Yeah.
And that's expensive.
Yeah, and I think with a lot of city people, a lot of the time they think it's the city's responsibility.
Sure. Yeah.
So
And
I
it stops,
think-
right?
Yeah.
It stops at the road, really.
Yeah.
So that's where the city's going to pick up.
Yeah.
So.
Now, in terms of when you should start talking to an insurance agent, like there's so many things, so many cooks in the kitchen, the home buying process, right? Like you have your agent, you might have an admin team like ours, like John and Liv, and all these other parties, lenders, title. When would you say is a good time to start chatting with people about like, hey, I'm looking to buy a home, looking for insurance. Is there a really a good time?
You know, a lot of people say at about 30 days before settlement is a good time to start shopping for insurance. But in my opinion, it's before you even go to look at the house.
Yeah.
Right. So you want to know how much is this property going to be to insure it? Right. Is it $80 a month? Is it $60 a month? Is it $180 a month? Right. And there's so many different factors that can go into that. But, you know, our program here with Goosehead, we have a program that you can quickly get an estimate of insurance. And
really?
it's typically within 10% of the actual cost. So they don't have to sit down or talk to anyone. They can do it in about 2 minutes and they can figure out, okay, this is roughly how much the insurance is going to cost across 30 different insurance companies. So you can see the top one, you can see the one that's not so competitive,
Yeah.
right? And kind of see all of them.
That's awesome.
Right,
Is
so-
that on your website?
Yeah. So it'll be on our website, gooseheadjeff.com. You'll find me there. Yeah.
Check it out, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let them know.
You can get your free estimate today.
Now, I know, in some other climates, obviously, like hurricane insurance is a huge one. Out of any other, like, maybe packages or things to add on, do you see anything around here that people really should look out for that is like a big, like, I don't know, big ticket item?
In Maryland, there's a lot of insurance for. Would you say flooding is? I mean, you do have we do have some flood zones over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the big things that I'm going to say. So first of all, as far as flood, right, we're all living in a flood zone.
Right.
It just depends on what level, right? How risky is it, right? A flood zone X is a very low risk flood zone. Does that mean it's not going to flood? No, right?
Okay.
It just means it's got a lower chance. So you can get flood insurance on any home that you buy, right? So obviously people think, oh, if I'm right in front of the ocean, right? Ocean City, Maryland, we're going to need flood insurance. There's a good chance you will, but sometimes you don't, right? So, but right here in Baltimore, Harford County, you can get flood insurance.
Yeah.
So I will say that it doesn't have to be groundwater saturating the earth and coming into the home, right? It could be your neighbor's pool.
Yeah.
It could be
True.
it could be a fire hydrant right out front.
Well,
right?
that's a good point.
So, flood insurance for a low risk flood zone, not super expensive, right? Because it's less risk, low risk, right?
Okay.
So, not a bad idea to think about those things. But back to your question, Christian, I think that, what are some things that you really want to look at when you're, looking for insurance? The first thing that you're going to want to look at is, are we making sure that the home is insured appropriately? So with every agent, when you talk to an insurance agent, you're supposed to be going through, all of the different features of the home, right? Because a 5,000 square foot home that has all builder's grade things in it, right, is going to be a lot less to rebuild than a 5,000 square foot home that has granite countertops and solid wood cabinets and more luxury features versus builder's grade, right? So your insurance agent should be walking through all of the different features of the home and showing you what those are, making sure that it's accurate, because from that number, the rebuild cost, right, all of your other coverages are a percentage of that.
Yeah.
So if that number's off, then all the other numbers are going to be off.
So I really think whether it's insurance, whether it's real estate agent, whether it's your lender, title, whoever, it's about talking to these people, talking to an expert, trying to put together a plan, or in this case, a policy or a package for what is going to best fit you and your family and your home, things like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like there's one right answer. And there's so many different routes that you could go. One thing that we had talked about is actually on this piece of paper. It says war or nuclear disaster. And I don't know if you guys have seen the like TikTok lately of people putting not like an Amber Alert, but like one of those like broadcasted messages saying like there's like a nuclear war that's happening to prank like their family or their friends. Have you guys seen that on TikTok?
I haven't seen it.
Not on my For You page yet.
I'll have to
Not
check
there
that one
yet.
out.
Give us some
My
time.
algorithm's a little different.
It'll get there. But in terms of like a war or a nuclear disaster, that's something that people can add on or no?
You can't really add on that one. So
Yeah.
so
I feel like if it's a nuclear one, at that point it's just game over.
I'm gone.
Can
I'm
you
leaving.
can
I'm
you
outta here.
okay, piggyback.
Okay.
Can you insure bunkers? Would that add value? If it, let's say it did add value to the home, could you potentially insure that?
I think you could. It's probably a specialty item, but it's something that could be insured now.
Are you
Everybody
preparing?
out there, everybody out there,
Yeah. So
in the center of the United States.
now it would be insured for other things than a nuclear disaster or a war, right? So if
Right.
there was a fire that started in there, right, that would be a good example, or a pipe break, the resulting water damage. So what we want to know about insurance, so your common policy is called an HO3 policy, but what you really need to know is insurance really just has a list of exclusions of things that are not covered, right? It's like everything's covered unless it's listed as being excluded, right? So the
Right.
carrier,
Yeah,
Real
like
estate
the house.
contract, yeah.
and that's for the building, the structure itself. You can get that on your things as well, but it's broad in that if it's not on that list, then there's a potential for it to be covered. There's more chances for it to be covered than not.
Okay.
Right? So nuclear disaster not covered, right? They can't
Yeah.
protect against the war.
Yeah.
Another one's going to
That's
be
unfortunate, America.
Yeah, darn.
You need to change your systems here, putting
Yeah.
us at risk.
Yeah, so we talked about flood already, right?
Yep, yep.
You can't protect against the flood. That's not part of your home policy. That is a separate policy. That's a flood policy, right? So you would put that together kind of like, you know, you got your auto, your home, your flood, right? You've got things like that. And then some other things are going to be wear and tear, rust and mold.
Okay.
Right? So wear and tear, rust and mold is a long-term issue that's happening continuously and repeatedly over a period of time, right? It's not like a fire that started on a Friday.
Will you guys have people?
You're saying it's preventative.
It's preventative, but it's also like an age item, right? It's going over a period of time consistently. So the best example I can give is probably a leaky pipe.
Yeah.
Right? So if you have a leaky pipe underneath your sink or in the wall, the insurance carrier, you can't see it, right? So, and the insurance carrier, you know, we don't know that it's there, but that is every time that leak happens, technically that's one claim because
Oh,
a
wow.
burst pipe. But then if it keeps happening over time and time, what happens with that? Mold, rot,
Okay.
right? Mildew.
Yeah.
And then it grows.
Yeah.
So it is probably the number one denial that I've seen in home insurance is going to be for continuous and repeated issues that happen over a period of time because it's written into the policy as an excluded item.
Wow.
So, you know, things that carriers are doing now are adding endorsements. So you've got your core policy, right? And then you can add endorsements on to protect common claims that we see, right? So it's
Trying
called
to profit off the person. I see you there. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
every
Trying to protect
insurance
us.
every insurance company, they generally speaking, they use the same forms.
Okay.
They make small revisions. All right. So every one of those says we will not cover for continuous and repeated issues.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like something that they can prevent pretty
Sure.
much.
Yeah,
You know, it's
maintenance-
like if you do
maintenance.
maintenance on your home and, you know, try to do the best you can,
Yep.
you can avoid those things.
Yep. Yeah.
So, do you have like people don't go out to the property to get any of this information? How do you guys get the information into your system? Like it says here, like age of HVAC, like age of roof, these types of things. Like, what if that information is not available? Do you ask, like, obviously the real estate agent or your client, or does someone go out to the property?
Yeah. So the insurance company, after the fact, they can come out and inspect the home. Right. So they just want to make sure there's not like a dead tree hanging over top of the house. Right. They could fall through it.
Okay.
So sometimes they'll do an exterior inspection, and then they may also, you know, maybe they will do a virtual inspection. So you'll walk around your house with a camera on your phone with an app, and they'll let you do that. But it's not every single carrier. It's really, you know, at random.
Right.
Only iPhone users.
For the most part. So to answer your question, you know, this is one of the toughest questions that I have to ask, but I have to get, you know, we have to get this to be able to get through and past underwriting. We need to make sure the risk is acceptable.
Right.
And when I say risk, home.
Right.
All right. So, you know, things that you can do is, you know, ask the listing agent. Right?
Okay.
And the
Yeah,
sellers,
yeah.
right? They may know,
Do
right?
your due diligence.
Yep. So the big items that we're looking for is the age of the roof, right? That's one. The HVAC unit. They want to know how old the HVAC unit is. And then your electric and your plumbing,
Okay.
right? So those are the four key things that every carrier, and there's some other things too, like do you have, you know, a pit bull? You know, nothing against pit bulls or anything like that, but some carriers do have restrictions on animals.
Really?
Really?
Yep. Do you have a pool with a
poor
sliding
bully
board?
breeds.
Right.
I never would have guessed.
Now, they are starting to get away from that, but there are still some carriers that have that. All right. And they'll sometimes they'll add an exclusion that says if the dog bites someone, right, we're not responsible.
Interesting.
Wow.
So, yes.
That's.
Yes.
I feel like that's.
That's what pet insurance is for.
Pet's going to help the pet
Yes.
if they get hurt.
Oh,
right.
God.
But the person that gets injured,
Right,
that's going to is
So
protecting you
would
from a
that
lawsuit.
really? I guess that would fall under home insurance.
It's a home insurance. Yep.
Wow.
I never would have guessed.
Yep. So it could be a dead tree in your backyard falls through your neighbor's house. And if you've been on notice, hey, your tree's dead,
Yeah.
and you don't fix it,
Yeah.
then it's on your home insurance.
That's a good point.
That's negligence right there
That is
because you knew it was dead and you didn't fix it, and now your
and you
neighbor's
were
house is.
too lazy, and now look at you, troubled in a pickle.
So I think the easiest, like the best ways to do this is ask the seller is a good item. A lot of our home inspectors have a they can reverse the model number and the make, the serial numbers, and find out when they were manufactured.
Yep.
Oh wow!
Right. So then we can
That's
get it.
talent right there.
Yes, there's a system they can do that with. There are also some sites you can find when a permit was pulled. So for the roof, right? So when you're doing a roof, a permit should probably be pulled.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So what year was that done? All right. So then we might be able to get the age of the roof if they don't have it.
Yeah.
So some carriers also use a topographical system that will be able to rate the roof actually by the satellites. So it'll say good condition, bad condition, average condition.
Yeah,
This is really crazy.
Well, I know with Tim uses his drone.
Yeah, he does drone footage.
He does
So,
drone
like,
footage. Mm-hmm.
you know, if there was ever a question, some of this, obviously, we put a lot of our clients in contact with you. We could easily share the inspection report to help out with a lot of the information.
Sure.
But for those like that are working with an agent, or they might not have that connection to an insurance agent or real estate agent with the tools that we have, you know, it might make, I don't want to say your job a little bit harder, but you're gonna have to do a little bit more digging for that information. And granted, these are maybe some things you just look out for when you're buying a home, right? Like what is the age of these things?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You know, are you going to have to replace them in the next year, or do you have time? You know, what's
Exactly.
the age of these systems?
Yep.
You know, I really think a big takeaway is one, like talking to these market experts, whether it is your real estate agent or your insurance agent, right? Making sure they have a good connection, because whenever my client has an issue, I can give them a call. They can give me a call. They can give you a call, whoever. You know, it's more than just like, oh, you're buying this house and see you later, right? Like
you need insurance,
right? We're here
right?
to also like support everybody, and you know, whether my client has like a leaky faucet or they want to upgrade their kitchen. I had someone give me a call, one of my clients, Felix and Ada. They got a quote from someone. They want to upgrade their kitchen. They said 150 grand. Crazy. And we gave them some tools, some connections to do it for much cheaper than that. So I think it's more than just, again, hey, you're buying a home and like, see you later. Like, we're here for a relationship to help you guys be supported throughout your entirety of living through this home, right?
Yeah.
Like,
All about who you know.
yeah. And then like a huge thing that people don't take into consideration is locality, like being a local expert. When we talk about lenders, like people will use one from like out of state, like they're like in Utah or like Idaho or something, right? It makes the process much more difficult as to where, you know, if they had a local one, it would be much easier. So using a local insurance agent, I think, can make a hell of a difference.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, I know the area, right? And I know, you know, some of the high risk areas if we're down by the water.
Yeah.
Right. So there's some carriers that they don't want to be there, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean they won't write you insurance.
Yeah.
It'll just be very high. So that's very important to understand. And you as a consumer don't have to understand appetite, but you need to know that it's out there, right? And that's the reason that one carrier is high in one part of Maryland and another carrier is low in that same area, because they are okay with that risk or that home. They don't mind being there. Being down by the water it's a high wind area. Right? So could potentially be flooding.
Yeah.
Right. So some carriers do not want to be in that area. And if they are, it's very expensive. So, and I'll say this, from someone shopping for insurance, it's exhausting.
Yeah.
Oh, I
It is
can only
very
imagine.
exhausting. After 2 or 3 conversations with insurance carriers,
It's a lot of information.
Yeah.
it's about 3 hours right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And then after that, you're kind of just burnt out. You're like, all right, which one's the best one? I'm going with that. Right.
Right.
So with what I do is I'm able to, you know, sit down, get the basics about the home, right? Learn about it, and then shop 30 carriers and then go through it myself and then present the one best carrier.
That's nice, because when I like bought my motorcycle and even my car, for my motorcycle, probably talked to 3 or 4 different insurance companies. Even when I got my car, probably 2 or 3. And at this point, I was like, I'm just over this. Like, at this point, I just want one. I don't even care anymore.
Yep.
But like having someone that can take care of that for you, help you do the research, could save you money in the end as well. Like, you remember Ben Larson?
Yep.
When did he settle? Probably.
It was a good example of the wind and by the water.
Yeah, and it was also earlier this year where he was doing, I think, insurance through maybe USAA at first. And it was probably like, it was a ridiculous amount of money, probably like $1,200-$1,300. And then we're like, hey, like, he only wanted to be out of pocket a certain amount for his closing and things like that. And that was putting him over his limit.
Yep.
And I was like, hey, dude, like, send me all your numbers. I want to review everything. I was like, dude, what is going on here? Your insurance is through the roof right now.
Dang.
And so connected him to Jeff, which put him in a much more comfortable position when it comes to bringing money to the table, got him back to budget. And you're able to help him out with home, car, and get him kind of like a nice package all in one.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I know Mike's had that kind of situation before as well, connecting you to some people, saving them a lot of money, which I think is fantastic. You know, I think you're a great resource, a great tool for all these home buyers out there, and to kind of have you under, or I guess a part of our team is a great value as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
For sure.
Well, that's going to be a question I add on the questionnaire. How much do you pay for insurance? Let's start there. What's your budget?
Yeah, and like again, I don't really know. I've never had insurance through USAA. I know a lot of people do it. Especially military that I work with, they always go through USAA. Don't know where their headquarters or anything is at, but like if they were to have an issue with USAA, I don't have that relationship to whereas like if there was something going on with Jeff, or maybe they needed to talk to Jeff or what have you, I can always give him a call, be the extra support. Not that they would have that issue, but just in terms of like, again, the relationship, the support all around, you're not calling a 1-800 number or what have you. Like, probably more than often they can have your direct line.
Text
give you
me.
a call. Yeah, exactly.
Email me.
Right? How many people that you work with in these types of like processes can say that?
Just text me.
Yeah, right. Like I'm always here, you know?
Yeah, so it's definitely something that's important, is being accessible and available and helping people when they need help, right? So with our system and how we're set up, you could communicate however you want, right? You could send an email, you can chat with us online at our website, you can actually schedule a call. You don't call us, you just pick a time, click the link and say, I want to call at 7:30 at night, we'll call you.
Yeah.
So it's a very good system that we have set up, and I'm fortunate to be able to do that.
Yeah, man.
So the other big thing to know is that I'm an independent agent. So I'm not a State Farm agent. I'm not a Geico agent, because they only sell those products.
Yeah.
I sell 30 different.
Which I think that's really good, because again, going back to like having to talk to a couple different insurance companies, like for my car, I think it was
That's
State
his job.
Farm. Oh, yeah, right. Like
That's what I do.
Just talk to one person and you'll talk to 30 people.
right.
Pretty much.
Right. He makes that process so much quicker. And it was just like a pain, and I didn't want to have to deal with it. And at the end of it, I was just like, I just want one already. Like I just want to stop dealing with it. So, have someone do that for you.
Sure.
Jeff right here.
And I'll tell you, there's been multiple occasions where I've gotten quotes from a carrier that is in my book, but the client may have sent that my way, and I have a chance to look at that, and actually I'm able to get it down even lower.
That's awesome.
Just by talking through and explaining what the coverages are and what they mean, then we can adjust them and work within that policy. Even if that is the best option, there's plenty of things out there. So just circling back to what's important to look at on your home insurance. Number one, it's going to be your deductible also.
Yeah.
Right? So we
That's
talked
huge.
about rebuild costs. That's important. Deductible. So if you see a percentage in your deductible, 1%, 2%, that's 1% of the rebuild cost.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So that's expensive.
I have
That is
never
very
actually.
expensive.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I hadn't never gotten into deductibles for home, and I think like for my car, it might be like $250 or $200 or something like that.
$250.
And like home, you're saying 1% of the rebuild cost, which
$5,000.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It could be $8,000.
now do some of them go over 1%, or is 1% kind of what you see?
So I don't typically write a 1% policy, but you will see it. And when you see 1%, just 1%. That's not too bad, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I like to see dollar numbers.
But let me explain to you what this actually means if there's a claim. And it's not like health insurance either, where you work your way up to your deductible every year. No, it's per loss. So if you have a fire one week and then you have a windstorm the other week,
Like, sorry,
That's
you gotta
times
cough
two.
it up, buddy.
right? So it's per
Wow.
law. So if I see something like that, I'm gonna educate someone about what that means if there's a claim. I'll give you some examples of claims, right?
Okay.
So I'll lay that out, and then I'll say, look, we can make this deductible 1,000, right? We can make it 1,500. We could go down to 500 sometimes. So it's all
like that
about
number.
understanding, right? But the other thing to look at is when we insure our cars are what? 20 grand, 30 grand, 50 grand, maybe more.
Yeah.
Our homes, 500,000.
Yeah.
So
Totally
$1,000 is a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I know it's a lot, right? It does seem a lot, but in the grand scheme of things,
Yeah,
the
protecting
insurance
your
company is
investment.
gonna pay all the way up to that amount.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you have your $1,000 deductible. Right.
That's
So
amazing.
not a bad thing to look at. Some other things in the home policy to look at and talk to your insurance agent about is going to be backup of sewer and water.
Okay.
Right. So some pump backups.
Okay.
That's the number one claim that you're going to see in a basement is a backup or overflow of a sump pump. And it's not covered under your standard policy. So you have to have it in there.
Really?
Oh, wow.
You have to have it in there. You got to put the dollar amount on there. All right.
Man.
Yeah. So.
Is it because it does not apply to every property, or why?
Well, I mean, there are some properties that don't have sump pumps, but that doesn't mean that you can't get that endorsement, because there's the other one would be sewer line. Every property probably has a sewer line in some way, shape, or form. So if that backflows into the property, it's not covered either under the home policy. So your sewer and water backup coverage is going to be able to provide one for the sump pump overflow, and the other one's going to be a sewer line backflow. Not a fun claim. Can be very expensive.
Yeah.
And that amount that you set aside is for the building itself and your things. So, it might be a couch, but also your basement floor. Right. Those things need to be pulled out and replaced and put back.
Okay.
So I'd say that's probably one of the big ones to look out for as far as important endorsements.
Yeah.
For sure.
Nice.
And
in terms of anything else, maybe that we didn't touch up on for insurance purposes, anything that you would, want to add on to? I mean, I feel like we hit a lot of things here.
We had a lot of great points.
Yeah, I learned a lot.
I learned a lot today, guys.
So I think it was very informative. Anything else that you would really add on that maybe we didn't touch on?
I think that just know that all of the coverages, when you move them, they are not necessarily weighted the same.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes you move a liability limit or a lawsuit protection limit from $500,000 to $300,000, and you're like, oh, that's going to save me a bunch of money. Well, check and make sure.
Right.
Because normally it's like could be $10 a year.
Yeah.
And does that make sense? 200,000 versus 500,000. It's the difference of that.
Yeah.
So that would be one thing. Is just as you move your coverages around, make sure you check what it did to the actual price.
Yeah.
Deductibles is big, service line, and sewer and water backup. I'd say that those are probably the big ones. And then the other one's going to be insuring your jewelry, right?
Oh, yeah.
So artwork, jewelry, specialty things, there are sublimits on those.
Now, would that be considered personal property, or is that actually
property.
Considered like just jewelry or anything like that?
It's in your contents to a certain limit.
Okay.
And then once you hit that limit, depending on the carrier, then you're out of luck.
So like for me, like guitars, computer.
Yep.
Really?
Yeah, sometimes computers. Sometimes there are limit on computers. So
Okay.
different carriers have different limits, and that's how they make insurance affordable, right?
Yeah.
Because there has to be these limits. So what you do is you can schedule those things. So you schedule your jewelry, you schedule your artwork, and you say it's worth this amount.
Okay.
Right, and then you make sure you have the right protection for that versus not having it and having to use just the sublimit. So
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was one thing. Even when I would do like renter's insurance, like how much they would ask me, like, what are my assets, I guess, that I have in the property? And it would be like my guitars, my amp, my computer, and some of those other things. So I'm assuming it goes over to homeowners insurance as well. You're kind of asking the same questions, getting an idea for what they have in the house. But yeah, that was a good thing that we added. We didn't really touch up on that as much. But yeah, man, thanks for hopping on the podcast.
Absolutely.
This was
Yeah,
great. And I feel like
knowledge is power, guys.
yeah, I think it was very informative and like something to take away. Always talk to the local expert. People that have relationships, they're here to support you. Talking to Jeff, talking to me, we're a great team. Not to toot our own horn or anything, but I think we work very well together, but also like providing value to you guys, and the home buying process can be very stressful, and we can take a lot of that stress off your plate, save you some money in the long run as well, and make sure whatever you're doing is right for you.
Absolutely.
So cater a plan. But thank you guys for tuning in to Two Baltimorons. My name's Christian Olson with Berkshire Hathaway. You can find me on Instagram at Christian the Deadhead. TikTok is the Deadhead Realtor. Andrea, how can they find you?
You guys can find me on TikTok and Instagram via Andrea_Soto and through text 443-668-7776.
And Jeff?
Yeah, I'm at Goosehead Insurance. So gooseheadjeff.com is where you can find me, or on any social media, same thing, Goosehead Jeff. So Instagram and TikTok. So
Hell yeah.
appreciate
Awesome.
it.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Until next time.
Bye, guys.